And 10 times like someone else has been instrumental.
The Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 18th, 2018 is called to order. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. David? Mr. Jessic?
Here.
Mr. Lyman?
Here.
Mr. LaSalle?
Here.
Mr. McEnroth?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Tong?
Here. The first item on the agenda is item 2, approval of the minutes of June 19th, 2018. Does anybody have any additions or changes to those minutes? All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Passed. Item 3, agenda analysis. Does anybody have anything they want to change or add to this evening's agenda? None? Citizen comments, do we have any? None? Item 5, new business discussion. 5A, Veterans Transportation Service discussion. Come forward, please.
Must be my cue.
That's your cue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Cornelius Booker. I represent the Veterans Transportation Service for the Veterans Administration. Just a little bit myself. My name is Cornelius Booker. I am a veteran of 32 years. I now work for the Veterans Administration, which I enjoy every day. It's an organization that has a lot of bad press, but you actually see heroes on parade every day there, and I'm just fortunate to be there to help. I'm here to explain a little bit about Veterans Transportation Service, who we are, what we do, and how we can integrate ourselves into the community a little bit better. And I will talk a little bit about what we're trying to do with Clackamas County. The Veterans Transportation Service actually initiated through Congress in 2014 when we had veterans not able to go to their appointments. We started a program that's in about 75 Veterans Administration facilities where we take veterans and their escorts to their appointments or appointments where we have choice now. So if it's a VA sponsored appointment, medical appointment, we take them for free. We have a ride share service, which we put everybody on the bus and take them there. We have a pretty good rate of making sure that they get there. Our goal is 15 minutes prior to their appointment, and we do a pretty good job doing that. We have 12 buses. We serve about 100,000 veterans under our catchment, which we call, which is pretty much all of Portland, all the way down to Roseburg and the middle of the state to Pendleton. That's pretty much my area where I maintain the operations here in Portland, and then also some of the rural counties that we have transportation. We provide the vehicles for these counties, and then we also have some voluntary service organizations like DAV who help with us in places that we just can't do. Our overall area within the metropolitan area is Southwest Washington, where we have a what we call a CBOC, a clinic out to all the way to Aloha, Gresham, down to Wilsonville. Pretty much about 20-mile radius. We'd like to go a little bit further. We just don't have the personnel. And so we're always looking for partners to help us facilitate the veterans going out and getting their appointments. The president has initiated the Choice Program, which if you have 30 days where you can't get your appointment, you'll go out to a civilian facility and get your appointment, which I'm a recipient of. So I'm not just a user, I'm a member too, I guess. So it's a good program. I do like to bring up a little bit about what we're trying to do with Clackamas County and their rideshare transporting people, I believe is the program. We have a very automated system. It's probably, we're close to Uber. So what we do, because the VA is so large and And a lot of people, we have a gamut of veterans. We go from World War II. We have a couple World War I veterans still alive. We have go to World War II, and then we have Afghanistan and Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So you'll see a gamut of people, and a lot of that has to do with how we're trying to use our automation. People who are my age and younger know how to use computers. People who are a little bit past my age don't. What we do, we have an automated program where we'll call the veterans, let them know what time we're going to pick them up, let them know what time we're going to take them home. It can be done through text, phone message, or email. We never used that. When I took the position over, I started turning these things on. We were first in the nation doing that. We only had 200 people actually using the service. Now we have over 3,000. And we are probably the beta tester for most of the nation. Because of our efforts here in Portland, a lot more of the facilities are going that route. But you got to have, got to be somewhat smart about it, I guess. And in regards to Clackamas County, we're helping. We have one aspect of that program is a third-party portal, where we know that sometimes we can't get some of our rural veterans out Estacada, out there in Mount Hood, because we just can't do it. But we are trying to partner with folks who could help us, and the easiest way to do that would be to work through our third-party portal. And that would be where we would identify individuals, and then we could send that information to our partners, and then they can accept or reject, and we can try to help people. So we're in the 21st century. We want to try to help these other organizations who have the abilities of lift and capable of helping vets, but they don't know how. We want to try to bridge that gap as much as possible. So I know my time's short, I know I provided some information about VetRide. I did mention about, we have vetride.net, where a veteran can go online and register and request this transportation. If we do have partners, like we're working with Clackamas here, if we can't provide it, then we would move it to Clackamas, and then they would either accept it or reject it, and then we can help them get those vets to their appointments. So, are there any questions?
When you're partnering with other organizations to help fill the gaps, can you give us some examples of what type of organizations you'd be working with?
Well, right now we're just starting off slow, and we would want to work with care facilities, senior citizens facilities, any of those facilities that have lift capabilities, ADA compliant facilities. Our partnership with Clackamas is starting off. We're actually trying to be ambitious. We're doing onesies and twosies. We're trying to do onesies and twosies to get this going. There are some funding to help help organizations that do help us. I have provided that to Mrs. Henderson over at Clackamas to try to sweeten the pie, so to speak.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hey, have you worked with TriMet and their Dial-A-Ride?
We work with TriMet. Unfortunately, I can tell you, for full disclosure, I was a vice president for TriMet. So I understand what TriMet does, and we do utilize TriMet as a service where we ask vets, if you're close in, go ahead and use the bus and we'll reimburse them. But ours is a little bit special. They don't necessarily do the things that we do on time. I mean, we're looking at making sure that the veteran gets to their appointment. That's our mission, that's our goal, that we don't have veterans not make an appointment. I'm sure if you've read a lot of articles about in the past, and there's a lot about the VA, that we got to make sure the vets get to their medical appointments. So that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what your client base in Oregon City is?
Yes, we have several clients here. We probably have about 50 vets that we work with right here. Most of them are in care facilities. We are really working toward the care facilities. Sometimes they can be problematic. We haven't had such a problem here in Oregon City, to be honest with you, but many of the cities in many of the care facilities in Multnomah County are problematic of trying to get our vets to the hospital or to their appointments. But we do have some, I do have some numbers. We have a lot of vets in Damascus, Eagle Creek. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do is to identify those organizations that will help the close-in rural vets to get to their facility. I can't do it alone. I mean, I don't have all the vehicles or the personnel and the time. So if a person has an appointment at 8 o'clock and they live in Eagle Creek, that may be a problem. But if I can work with other organizations who actually are in Eagle Creek or Damascus and pick someone up, take them down to, say, the public safety center on 82nd, I can pick them up and get them to their appointments. So that's the type of coordination we're looking for.
So, Bob, could I? So I was going to cover an item at the end of my Public Works report that it seems more timely to cover right now.
Sure.
Just so that maybe you can hear this too, because you're not probably going to stick around for the whole meeting, right? So a couple things that I know are going on right now regionally. This House Bill 2017 had a fair amount of funds available for transit and enhanced transit. Now, a lot of that goes to TriMet, and a lot of it's kind of the funding is divvied out through TriMet. But what I'm hearing in the region, in the Clackamas County region, and probably all the counties, but I hear about it specifically through our region, through the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, is that those other providers that reach maybe not in the TriMet district, but are outside the TriMet district, CAT, for instance, I can't remember the name of the one that goes to Molalla. I don't know if any of you remember that, but there's that group. TriMet does go to Estacada, for instance, and SMART through Wilsonville. So there's some, and then Clackamas County has a system for assisted, help as well. And so those folks, which, again, I could put you in contact with. They're all right now using some of that money that was allocated through House Bill 2017 to do a better job of making connections. And Oregon City is kind of a hub. So, and there's a lot of desire to get, not necessarily veteran connections, but employment connections, housing connections between Oregon City, Wilsonville, Tualatin, Molalla, Malino, all those other areas. So they may be, and I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention really under my report is we just received word, we were a co-applicant with Clackamas County as well on what we're calling kind of the last mile shuttle service in Oregon City. And so that service it's long-term funding. The House bill for the metro area designated $3 million a year to go to help fund things like, if you're familiar with the Grove Link in Forest Grove, they have these smaller buses that help folks around their local community. So it's kind of an extension of the TriMet service. It's actually getting high school kids to high school, middle school kids to middle school. It's a little bit more like Dial-A-Ride, although not quite. They have kind of a general route, but they go off route. And so this grant was to first study how we might deliver those kind of services in Oregon City and acquire the buses for people in Oregon City, and then fund the program in Oregon City, ongoing, assuming it's successful, right? So the amounts of the grant, so it's a 3-year budget of just under $800,000 that the grant was pursuing. And for Oregon City share, I think it was like we had to contribute or match like $30,000. So pretty good deal for us. I don't know, I've got a slide on it, which I'll show you later, but there was actually a pocket area that was kind of around the southern rim of Oregon City where TriMet doesn't go. So South End Road, if you remember, TriMet stopped serving South End Road years ago. Partlow Road, Leland, all those kind of fringe areas we could serve, as well as stopping at some of the local areas and then getting to the community college. Definitely the Caulfield neighborhood, for instance, out by the high school. So there's at least that local connection that might get that kind of last mile piece that you might want to look into. But I think the more important piece is trying to put you in connection with those other transit providers that are serving out. And I could definitely kind of get you some contacts.
I would definitely like that. I like the last mile issue. We are trying to figure out, we have a lot of vets in Canby we can't get to. If they could get to Oregon City, it'd be great. We can get them here. We can get them to their appointments and stuff. So I like that. And I would appreciate anything you have. I'm here. I'm here. I'm the government. I'm here to help. I'm actually here with my hand out saying, it's almost emotional when I talk about it for some respect, but of all the people that we have, our veterans really need you. And we're not asking for much. We just want to find ways so we can actually work together. I didn't really see myself as a veteran after 32 years. I just saw myself as a guy who retired. But as I work with our vets, I'm very privileged to be at the VA. So I have an opportunity to make it better. And I know that there's a lot of bad things that they talk about, but in my world, we try to do the best we can, and we do everything we can for the vets. I'm just asking, let me get any resource that you have. We can partnership. We have the technology. We will not tell you what to do. We're not that. We just want you to help us help the veteran.
I think there's a Willamette Valley Transit District too, or something that's operating out around Eugene and Corvallis, Albany, and they kind of go from Florence over to Eugene, and then I think they come up here to Salem at least, but they're a quasi-government organization.
The way we would work with our partners would be you retain all your information, you retain everything. We would only provide you through a portal that's secure, VA secure, of these are some folks that would need some help to get to a location. Can you provide it? And you can say yes or no. And if it's no, it comes back to us. We find other people. That's a little bit different than, just giving a piece of papers and stuff. You actually have a website you could go to and say, yes, I can support that, and we'll pick up that veteran and take him to where he needs to go, or the escort. So it's a little bit different than what we've been trying to do. This makes it a lot more easier, and it's more technological, where the provider maintains their organizational structure. We don't get involved, and we really will treat you like a third party. We can't do it. Let's send it out to the third party. Can you do it? Yes or no? But we have the technology to make that happen. So that's the twist on that. So we're not. You can do it what you want, and so through your travels, people need to understand that. We're not going to put the federal hammer on you. You need to do this, you need to do that. It's just, hey, can you do it? Makes it a lot easier. So,
Well, as a 24-year veteran myself, I appreciate your efforts that you're doing and appreciate your service.
well, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you, sir. So I don't have any cards, but I'm sure Ms. Barkrich and Ms. Davis knows exactly where I'm at all times. And so I would welcome, please, any comments. Mr. Lewis, I will either come and see you, or if you can get some information, I
Yeah, we'll get you some info.
appreciate it. So, thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is item 5B, a presentation on the tourism plan for the municipal elevator.
Is this your phone, sir? Oh, is this the timer or is this your phone? Okay. Should I wait for our other committee member to come back? Do you mind?
I have your stuff. What do you want up first? Do you want the guide or the field guide? Or
So what was the other thing you said?
you have pictures or the guide?
Let's pull up the guide first. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Lori Bell, I'm the Economic Development Coordinator. I've been here at the city for almost 6 months. Before that, I worked at Clackamas County. I worked with juveniles, and I was at a nonprofit and in outside sales and blah, blah, blah. So now I work in economic development, and you may be familiar with about a year ago, Oregon City put out some RFPs to gather information about a tourism plan. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Okay. I don't want to be redundant and tell you all these things you already know. But out of that plan and out of that consultant came another consultant, and then in January, they decided to focus on the municipal elevator as an experiential tourist site. So what the idea was to leverage the municipal elevator and its uniqueness as a draw for people to come and visit. And our intention, or the intention of the consultants, was to get people to linger longer in Oregon City. So we want them to come here and feel like it has a lot more than maybe they thought at the beginning. Another piece of that has evolved recently is working with the community college. I love that you just brought up the shuttle, actually. We were just talking about that on Thursday, trying to get those thousands of students to view Oregon City as a place that they can be a part of, not just come here and go to school, but that they can linger longer with their families. And then, of course, we want them to retain their talent and come work here as well. So what I'm going to show you today are some of these deliverables that are going to be happening on the elevator that you can see and participate in. I don't have necessarily specific demographics on how it will impact transportation, but I hope that it does have an impact on transportation, because my hope would be that people come here. And the first thing that I'll show you is, you can find this out tonight. Actually, the elevator is open till 9:30. You can come back tomorrow. If you come back on Friday to the elevator, this is what you'll see. So you're getting a little behind the scenes scoop. The budget allowed for certain things. We were very fiscally responsible in our decisions and tried to make things not too flashy, but engaging enough for the locals to like it and still feel like it was their elevator to work, but also that people would want to come see it. So Friday, if you walk into the elevator, there will be an elevator operator in a very spiffy little uniform with a very spiffy badge. And if you ask or see, you may be offered what's called a field guide. It looks exactly like that. You can see it on your screens, right? Okay. So it's about this big. It's a little passport. And our tagline is that your adventure starts here. The elevator to the committee that's worked on it is very much a conduit between downtown and uptown. So we see it as a way for easily to get people to come, say, to the White Rabbit and have a cup of coffee, and then take the elevator up and come all the way down to maybe the McLaughlin House, which is now open. So we see it as a way to connect downtown and uptown. When you get into the elevator, you will be handed this cute little guide. Maybe not the word cute. I'll work on that. So you'll get this guide, and it's going to give you a couple different options as to how you can navigate the city. So these are suggestions. We were very strategic and not wanting to promote one business over another. So we weren't going to say, hey, go eat at Singer Hill, or, this is the best Mexican restaurant. That's not what the city does, right? So we just want you to linger longer and explore and determine for yourself. So there's a couple different options. When you first get to the top of the elevator, you will see some seek and find elements. So you get a little history of us there for the travelers, and then the seek and find elements are rooftop elements that you can now stand in the elevator and look around and see. There are 3 in place right now. The rest will be there if you wait till Friday. And that is to get you to linger longer, right? So you're going to look out the window and look around and see these cool things. My personal favorite is Old McLaughlin. He's there now. If you look out the windows, you will see him peeking at you through a window. I won't tell you where, but you can find him there. You also, these are then your options for different routes. So we have one for the adventure seeker, right? We believe there are a lot of opportunities in Oregon City for people to kayak, hike. We want them to be a part of our outdoors. So these are all different options. We were very strategic in making sure they could all fit on the map. So certainly there's more than this in Oregon City. But we are printing 4,000 on Thursday. And then with our next print, we're going to sort of gauge and see what works and what doesn't. What kind of feedback do we get on these? So these are options for the adventurer. There's a time traveler, because we have so many historic and heritage sites. We couldn't leave those out. Those are all listed. We didn't put them in order. Actually, you can see it's not, they're numerical on the left, 1 through 10, but we didn't want you to necessarily follow our path, 1, 2, 3, 4, like a connect the dots. We really want people to make it their own and linger and find the place that they walk past and say, oh, I have to go back because I didn't get into that pizza place, or I really want to go back because I didn't have time to go to the McLaughlin house. I'm going to come back, right? So that's the time.
Question?
Yes.
Are you going to identify the Ermiting House as where Portland got named?
So that's a very good question. We would hope that when they get there, they will learn it when they get there.
Well, yeah, but you might want to get them there first.
Well, we want them to go there. That's a good point. We could add it next time. We have some...
It's on there. Visit the Ermitinger.
It says visit the Ermitinger, but he's asking me to point out... He's asking me to point out that it was named, that's where the name of the city, Portland, came from.
Yeah, well, why should I go to the Ermiting House?
Oh, why should you go to the Barkley House? Those are all just kind of pointing out places that would be interesting to see that you can discover.
And they won't, thank you. Yeah, what he said. But it is open now. So we had to, we can only put so much information on one page, I think would be my answer too. We didn't want to tell you everything about each piece. We really want you to go there and check it out. The Casual Pioneer, these are just other casual things to do to sort of make you think about it for a while. We really just want people to think about, usually I just drive home on my way home from the college. I don't stop and eat, or I wouldn't think of going to the library here. I would go to my home library, so I want them to come here. If you go around to several of these different sites, 4 to be specific, there will be, as of Thursday, this very lovely, I'll pass it around, hand-pressed poster. These are limited edition. I'll start here if you want to take a look. So these have been being placed around the city by myself for this week at many different locations, and they're at all of the sites that are listed. They will be by Friday, all the sites that are listed in the field guide, as well as some businesses. And if you stop into this location, you can get a stamp or some sort of something that says you went there. The instructions say that if you go to, that you could also do a pencil drawing, so you know how you can just put your piece of paper like on the stone wall and say that you were at the Kenema Bluff Overlook. If you fill out 4 different things and you can come back and tell your elevator operator, hey, look, I went around the city and did this, then your prize is a very cool, also limited edition pennant, which the elevator operator will hand out. So we think it's fun for families. We think it's a really cool thing. There will be some stickers in some of the participating partners. We would be really smart about not promoting one business over another. So that you'll notice there's no business names other than the heritage sites, which we want you to be able to identify. There's a large social media campaign, which starts on Friday as well. And it is all based around Travel Oregon City. So the creative firm that we've worked with has a lot of beautiful photos. And are you familiar with Instagram? Or Twitter, all that stuff. So we have our own Instagram handle. It's called Travel Oregon City. It officially goes live on Friday in conjunction with the passports. The field guides will be handed out. All of the pieces will be in place. We have a couple social media influencers. Do you know that term? It's a really cool job, apparently, that all the millennials are doing. It's where you go out and tweet about things and people pay you to tweet about it. I'm considering it a second career. But so we've invited some people that have a lot of followers, like thousands of people follow them because they're so cool, essentially. So we've invited them here Friday, a couple, and we want them to experience our field guide and tweet about it with all their followers. We have created a couple unique experiences for them. They will be getting a behind the scenes look at Saber Forge. Are you familiar with that business? They are in Oregon City and they make lightsabers, custom lightsabers that are out of my 9-year-old's price range. Saber Forge?
I know.
I was like, you haven't been there. It's pretty cool. So they're going to get it behind the scenes.
5 of them.
You do not. You do?
Just 2.
They're not cheap. But they're a really cool business in Oregon City. So they're going to bring the social media influencers in and show them how they can put one together. It's
Laura, you
incredibly
should consider taking them up into the guts of the elevator. The machinery up top is actually quite.
I thought we weren't allowed up there.
Yeah.
You can make arrangements.
Okay, well,
It's a little.
they told me I couldn't even go in there.
We can talk offline.
Okay.
It's who you know.
Now I know. So they're going to be doing that, and then we are going down to Feckin Brewing. Have you been there? And they're going to get private axe throwing lessons. So very unique Oregon City experiences, right? And our hope is that this will spread. I have a whole list of other really cool activities. So we'll probably, in conjunction, I don't know if you've met Kristen Brown. She's a really amazing, our communications coordinator at the city. So I work very closely with her in how to manifest these projects, and she's she makes everything I do better. I'm just giving her props right now. So we have a plan to do this probably quarterly, different things. And it will be, the hope is that it will expand into a bigger tourism plan, which will be talked about tomorrow night. But this is just the first piece that we're implementing. Whenever we have people that ask about it, they ask about parking. I'm trying to tie this back into transportation. We always tell them to park up top and take the elevator down downtown, because why wouldn't you? What else can I show you about this? Oh yeah, I'll show you a little sneak peek of some of the rooftop decals that you can look for tomorrow. Don't tell everybody though if you find them. In the body of the elevator, that was just luck that the firemen happened to be there that day, actually. So I made them pose for that, because it's not often you get 3 firemen. We put in a new mural, so you can see that right now. And we worked really closely with Martin and his team, and John Lewis has seen me in his office maybe too many times over the last 2 months. But that is a selfie spot. So you've traveled around, maybe if you've ever been to Austin or even Seattle, they have really cool wall things that people want to take a picture of, and then we want them to tweet about it and Instagram about it so that other people want to come here too. That is there right now. You can take a picture in front of that. And the other really cool thing that will make people linger longer are these. They look like stencils, and they are along all 12 windows of the elevator. The creative firm that we worked with is really great, and they are artists, one of them in particular. So he took photos out of each window, and then he hand drew. Oh, that's amazing. Hand drew the things that he saw, and we lined them up. So they put these decals in, so when you stand there, the dotted line is something that's no longer there. So that's a you won't see the Chase House anymore. But if you ask the elevator operator about it, what is the Chase House? They have so much information about the history. So we really see this as an opportunity to get people to linger longer, ask questions, and learn more about our city, and then want to come back. So next time they're going to want to come back and see more. So you can see it almost lines up perfectly if you're looking at the power plant. We went back and forth on what to name it, what kind of information we should put in, what we shouldn't. These will be in place they should be solid for a year. We can change them in a year and put up different things. You know, the hope is that this will be a very intriguing and appealing project. I can tell you that already I see people lingering around in the elevator and looking at everything. They haven't started to see these yet. So this is a rooftop decal that will be placed on our rooftop. Did you know that there are Swifts that come during September? He's not very excited about it in his chimney, but it's very good eye candy for us. So this is an example of a pallet that we made, and it's just a wooden pallet. It has a really cool breathable mesh, very durable fabric on top, and it's just sitting on a rooftop. So when you look around, we want you to look for these kinds of things, and of course, we want you to tweet about us on all of your Twitter pages so that all of your followers know. Do you know who this is? John McLaughlin. Yeah. There's a creepier one that's in the window. This is a sort of animated one, but we were adamant about really wanting the creepy picture with his spacey eyes. That's there too. So John's there. The kayak is down there. This one requires binoculars. It's quite far away, so you really have to linger and find that one. That one is currently in place. It makes you smile, right? It's pretty cute. And that one is currently in place as well. There he is. Yeah. He's in a window. Yeah. So those are little checkpoints on the field guide as well. So it tells you what you can look for. There are other things that we didn't install that we just want people to look for, like the barber pole. There's a Lady Justice on top of I think it's an investigative firm downtown or something. He's got a statue on his rooftop, so we put that as one, as well as the barber pole. So there's a little history around that, and it all starts on Friday, and we will be tracking our pamphlets. I just was working with our partner to make our plan on how are we going to track this data, how are we going to use it, how are we going to know if it's effective, does it work, do people like it, do they hate it? But my hope is that they like it.
So
what questions?
I have a question. If this proves to be effective and you got influx of people, that seems like would put a little challenge onto the surrounding areas in terms of the parking.
So the elevator, well, if they're coming into town, they're going to have to either park downtown or uptown. And I think from my perspective, this might be the really wrong thing to say, but that would be a really great problem to have for us. It would show us that people are coming, and that's what I want. So I'm not in charge of transportation, but I can tell you that, that time will tell. I think that it's not like all of a sudden 1,000 people are going to be here Saturday because they can't wait to see the elevator. I don't anticipate that. If it did happen, again, I still think that would be a great problem to have. But I trust these experts over here to sort of help me navigate that. We have a great communications team to help us advertise and tell people where they can park. We're going into winter right now. We didn't launch this at the beginning of summer, so I don't anticipate people coming down in the snow and rain to look for John McLaughlin, but I do hope that they will slow down a little bit and pay attention, and we'll see. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was going to just point out that, you're in front of the Transportation Advisory Committee, and they try to respond to transportation problems in Oregon City, and I think you probably are our worst enemy right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm giving you the heads up. So what if you didn't know? Then you would be really mad at me. Now I've given you all the information so you can tell them, park up here and take the elevator down.
Right, so this may be pretty far-fetched, but one of the beauties for the Portland Airport are the red and green lights that tell you where to park. because you can go in there and the first layer is, it's all red and it tells you where the green is and it'll give you how many numbers there are. I wonder if any city's ever tried to do that with its public parking lots or parking ramps or just on-street parking. I mean, there may be, if you came in and it said no parking downtown, but parking up on the hill, you come right up on 10th and boom, another little sign says, hey, there's 5 on-street parking places here. I mean, it's probably pretty far-fetched, but
I
who
like
knows?
it. I support it.
Well, to me, another more simple way, since we don't have a parking structure like that and kind of a specific spot for parking, it's sprawled, right? Maybe there's, through the tourism plan, I mean, that's probably another thing to address. Lisa's mentioned to me that we have been advertising that City Hall parking lot, there's lots of times that it's empty. And so it's available, for short-term parking, not day-long. I'd go to work.
Well, Saturday and Sunday, it's a great place to park.
Yeah.
But you may be aware of it, that the operators contract with the city, and in turn, our Rotary Club's volunteers on Sundays for 15 minutes to give the operator a break to go to the bathroom. So the Rotary Club's involved in that.
So are you working on Sunday? Because I can help prep you for how to hand out the field guides if you need a little time.
I don't have the sheet with me, but I happen to be the one who passes it around. So if there's an open slot, I usually get stuck with it, even though it's a whopping 20-minute job.
I'm so glad you said that. I forgot all about that. We were just putting together what are our notes and instructions for the operators when they get questions, and I got them a clipboard so they can write down notes for me so I know what's happening and just their little kind of cheat sheet. Because I don't want anyone to get mad at them.
But it's a delightful 20 minutes. The last time I did it was when they had the art fair, antique fair down. I didn't even remember. I came in and things were all jammed up. And I mean, oftentimes there was at least 10 people riding up or down at one time in the elevator. And they're all animated and it's a lot of fun.
And I always tell people, I've spent a lot of time in the elevator lately, and especially watching people engage as we're starting to install things and pointing them out and saying, what do you think? And look at this and check it out. And I always direct them to go down the stairs. If it's not raining, take the stairs down and then take the elevator up. Because it's beautiful and it's a nice little way. It spreads you out and it's downhill. So a lot of people will do that. Or we want to send them up the promenade for a little walk and take a look at the falls.
Was there an effort to reach out to private property owners at the top of the elevator with regards to parking? I mean, there's several areas up there that's all private, but like City Hall, they close at 5, but they make it pretty clear they don't want you parking there.
Yeah, I think, so this project was really specific. I got it 6 months ago and it was like, okay, make the elevator this. But the tourism plan.
Make the elevator cute.
Yeah, and appealing and get people to linger longer. So we had a very specific focus, but there is a tourism plan being presented to the commission tomorrow, and I'm certain that part of that plan will be how are we going to handle traffic? What's the plan? There's a budget for that. We had a very specific budget that was just elevator focused. And we still did a lot of community engagement, like with McLaughlin Neighborhood. They all put input into this. Most of them have seen this. The Midtown Association has seen it. Vicki Yates and all of those businesses uptown. I worked very closely with a lot of them so that they would know what was happening and make sure they liked it. I think that definitely that traffic piece and parking is going to be with the maybe me. I don't know.
I can address a little bit about Vance's question.
Okay.
Downtown Oregon City Association is working on night and weekend parking. They're working closely with the city. There's some liability issue kind of things. There's some signage issue things, but there is a movement afoot to allow that. And there's also, the Planning Commission is working on a tremendous list of code revisions, and there does have to be a little tweak in the code because our code now allows parking that's directly associated with the building activity, but it doesn't allow it if it's not directly associated with the building. So there's a little tweak there, but there is a movement afoot to encourage night and weekend parking.
That's a good point, and I should add too. So this project was partially funded by a grant that DOCA, Downtown Oregon City Association, received from Travel Oregon. So they received a grant and we matched it. So we being the city, so they were co-project coordinators on the project, and I've spent a lot of time with Jonathan and now Liz a lot over the last couple of months. So I appreciate that you brought that up. I'm sorry I didn't mention that before. Actually, it wasn't a single person project. Thank you.
So when we're on this topic, eventually we'll have this promenade extended to falls, or that would be another attraction that would get people here. What is the latest in terms of, is there going to be a parking structure, or how's that going to fit?
So that's a much longer conversation. The short answer is initially with the opening of the phase 1 of the pathway, there's no plans for a parking structure, but there is discussion about using some of the surface area inside the site for parking for that to get to the river trail. So that long-term parking structure for that site, quite likely.
Good point. Any other questions?
No, but I got a comment, but you better read it rather than me discussing it.
What, is it make you cry?
I'd fly it over, but I'm not good at that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Well, that sounds like a pretty neat project, so best of luck to you.
I learned a lot about elevators, and I didn't even interview for I have no expertise or anything on any of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 5C, Safe Routes to School Grant Application and Action Plan Discussion.
Okay, so
Projector items.
just mine. Yeah.
I do have one. Oh, yes, you have, right.
Couple of things before I get onto that. I don't know that we've introduced Kim Davis yet. She's our new senior administrative assistant, and she is, as I think you all know, Lisa's now the assistant to the city manager. So she's moving up in the world, literally. So she's now upstairs, and Kim has joined us. She was working at the police department as records manager there. And so she sits in an office right next to Martin. So, recognize she's got a little bit of tough guy. And so anyway, she's eventually, this Transportation Advisory Committee and the agenda and the minutes and all that, that's a pretty big lift. So we're gonna take our time with that. But Lisa's kind of schooling her a little bit on how to get through that. So just thought be good to have her. So welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is we need to talk a little bit about the next month's meeting, because I'm going to be at the APWA conference, and I think Martin may be as well. We won an award of which Martin was kind of the lead person on, so he may be down there for the awards banquet, and so that would could put a problem on our meeting on the 17th. So. We may have to figure out something different there, Bob, whether it be to not have that meeting or reschedule that meeting. And it's always hard to reschedule night meetings in this room. So,
And I'll not be there.
You're going to be at the conference too?
I'll be at the conference too.
Okay.
You accepting the award with us?
No, I'm doing presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So just those are a couple things. A couple of things with regard to Safe Routes to School, because this is kind of a combination item. This slide doesn't necessarily pertain to the first part of the conversation, which is about the last meeting we had. We had Wes Rogers from the Oregon City School District that talked about Safe Routes to School and the Oregon City School District's interest in Safe Routes to School. The focus that they'd like to put on would be Gardner School, so the Gardner Middle School. And we've since used that in our pursuit of Safe Routes to School projects in Clackamas County. So the county has asked the cities in the county to kind of talk about doing a group project through that could receive grant funding. So we've listed the Gardner Middle School project is the one project that would be pursued on a countywide level. And there's 3 or 4 others that are in other agencies. So Gardner Middle School is kind of our target for those projects, and the school district seems very interested in that. So we're hearing good things from them. They want to start that process this fall. So that's kind of the update with regard to the last meeting that we had. With regard to this project, we are also moving forward with a letter of intent. There's kind of a separate track of projects that could be considered safe routes to school projects. Some of you might remember this Holcomb Boulevard project from years ago. We pursued it. Bob, you probably remember it in particular. It was a fairly back time we pursued this, which was, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. At that time, it was close to $800,000 project. So if you go to the next slide.
You can control it, yeah.
So this was kind of what we applied for before, which was sidewalks along both sides of Holcomb, kind of connecting some of the missing pieces. We have come to realize that this grant program is very competitive. They got letters of interest from, I can't remember the number, but they got $100 million worth of requests, and they've got $10 million to give away. So it's again another one of these grant programs that's probably overspoken for, but we're going to continue. 140 letters of intent were submitted, so you can kind of imagine how many folks are going to be interested in it. It's a statewide program too, so we're going to do our best. We're going to scale this project a little bit and probably not build sidewalks in front of undeveloped land like the Sears property, for instance. We're talking about opportunities to kind of get maybe some sidewalk built along near the elementary school itself. So we're scaling this project. We're still working on that application. Applications are due in October. So just wanted to let you know that we are kind of pursuing yet another grant for Safe Routes to School beyond what we're doing with Gardner Middle School. So we expect applications are due October 15th. They'll be reviewing those and scoring those and making recommendations on those throughout the rest of the year and even early into January of 2019. And then we expect to have some word on whether or not our project would be approved by February 2019. Okay. Any questions on that? We got a few pictures from National Night Out. Unfortunately, I didn't take very many pictures, but both Bob and Henry were there at the National Night Out. We did a lot of, we provided a lot of information about what we had in terms of traffic control. We did a really good service for TriMet because we were handing out the HOP passes, and they had like I can't remember how much, the $5 value or something to them. So we were registering people that wanted the HOP pass, and we were handing those out. And one of the big things, and one of the reasons why it's on the agenda, is we realized, this was in the summer. We weren't meeting. We hadn't spent much time talking about it, and so it was kind of a staff scramble to figure out what are we doing. And we didn't have necessarily. If you remember when we started doing the National Night Out, we did it because we had the Drive Safe Oregon City campaign going, and we had those stickers that we were wanting, stickers and the brochure and those kind of things. That was our intent, was to get that information out. And we've been doing it since. We've been kind of partnering with the CIC. This year it was pretty obvious to us that we didn't necessarily have just a Transportation Advisory Committee message. CIC they didn't really have much of a message to deliver. So we talked to Laura Turway a little bit about, what are we doing here? Should we continue doing it? And we just kind of want to open the discussion, not tonight, but open the idea with the Transportation Advisory Committee as to whether or not this is an event we really need a presence at. Because while it's good, we handed out, I don't know, a couple hundred Public Works hard hats to the little kids, but we handed out a lot of good information. I think those TriMet passes were really well received, but I'm still not sure it was good use of city time and resources. So.
From my being there and what I saw, I was I would say it would make some sense to have a public works type of booth where you can explain the sewers, the sanitary, the waters, and those kind of things that everybody wants to know something about anyway. And you use, maybe one or two of the crewmen or something just to make sure that we're human beings that are there and not suits. But that was the perspective that I thought would work.
Well, what's the focus of this event in the first place?
Yeah, National Night Out is about public safety for the most part. So in the past, when we had the Drive Safe Oregon City campaign, it kind of fit a little bit better.
But why couldn't this event talk about the, safe routes? There's a lot of things to inform public on how to stay safe on the roads and all those things. There's some value there. Kids, I think the Clackamas County has some information. I just grabbed a couple things for my kids that talk about, crosswalks and a lot of stuff. So I think there's some value to be there and share some of that information and what city does to make roads more safer and to get you from school to home and those sort of things.
I guess I would echo what he said, and that's the sense that what's the overall mission of the event, and then what does Public Works and Transportation, how does that fit in there? And I personally don't think we should be talking about things that don't pertain to what the mission of the evening is. Whether that means we need to have a full-on, as you said, city presence there and be handing us it might be something simpler to have handouts or something there that we can partner with some other group that's there for that evening.
Well, that was kind of what we started with, which was, again, a little bit more of a public safety, transportation safety message. There's lots to talk about, but we don't always have the brochures necessarily. And unless you have the appropriate kind of handouts, the audience there is usually, they're very interested in getting their stamps to get to whatever, I can't remember what the prize was for that, but they want to get that filled out, and they're very interested in what the police have to offer. There's a lot of booths that aren't public safety related, so for those of you that have attended that, it is kind of a community event. It's just, to me, it was back to, we typically can do a lot to bring a public works message, but this was really inspired by the Transportation Advisory Committee. And if we're going to do that, then I think we need a work plan that kind of establishes what we're going to do next summer, right?
It would be helpful because we don't really have any good brochures to hand out. We don't have any talking points to get a conversation started with somebody that enters the booth. I think we need to get organized if we're going to stay in this event. Be organized so that those of us who will volunteer our time will have something to say.
Yeah. So again, I think that no resolve. I'm not saying we're not doing this. I'm just suggesting that if we're going to do something like that, let's agree on what we're going to do or not do.
Well, let's put it on the agenda for some future agenda discussion.
I would recommend like a subcommittee or something, so we talk about it offline.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better option. Is stuff like this you don't want to leave to the last minute.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe establish a subcommittee, and
okay.
Is there others that would be interested in that topic that we?
I'd serve on a committee.
Okay. All right.
I would too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can always count on Henry.
Oh yeah, you can always count on me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'll appoint Ed as the chair of that subcommittee. How's that for action?
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
Okay, the next item then would be the Public Works report.
And I'm just,
Interesting picture.
Is this Kanema?
Looks like it might,
Good name.
yeah, this is Kanema, but that's not the next agenda item. So the next agenda item was just a update on, or what I thought it was an update on the High Street construction project. It's been one of our more impactful projects. I've got one, thanks. This summer, and we've done it in a couple phases. So the water line work, we decided to bid out separately, so to have a different contractor work on that project throughout the summer, and with the idea of following that up with street work. And we've completed the water line work. The problem that we've run into on that street is we've got a lot of franchise utilities, the gas company mostly, but there's also a communications company that's in High Street. So trying to get the water line work done, the storm line work done, and the franchise utility work just been impactful. And but I think we're making good progress. So it's difficult. There's a lot of bedrock along High Street, as you might imagine. If you walk the bluff, it's pretty hard material up there. So been a lot of rock breaking going on up there. But again, trench line excavation and the water line work that they did, that's done. And the second contractor that's moving in there is a contract that actually Matt Pollison, who works for Martin, is managing, which is the pavement maintenance projects. And all of those pavement maintenance projects are done with the exception of High Street. So S2 Construction's doing the work. They've done a lot of our pavement work in the past. They're also charged with doing some storm work on High Street to get the drainage that doesn't drain so well on High Street handled, and they build all the ADA ramps along that section. So right now, if you've driven down High Street, you probably noticed there's a lot of trench patching that's in there that's temporary, and a lot of concrete sidewalks that are in disarray and really kind of difficult to walk through even as a pedestrian. So they're making good progress on that, but we just kind of wanted to mention it because next week it gets even more problematic in that if you know where the High Street Market is, the Kwanzaa building right there on High Street, that's kind of what would be, I guess, the north end of the project. We'd have liked to gone farther with the High Street project, but we just didn't have funding either for the utilities or the pavement. So we stopped at 3rd Street, but they're going to be starting with reconstruction of the intersection of 3rd Street and taking that 2 blocks to the south between 3rd Street and 1st Street. So they're going to core that out and reconstruct the whole thing, and hopefully we'll end up with a much better roadway section. So that starts on the 24th of September, which is next Monday, and they hope to complete those 2 blocks by October 4th. Now, we're praying for good weather, so keep that in mind as well. That's another piece. And then after that, they'll go the next 2 blocks. And the intent was to do the section of South 2nd Street between High and Center. The gas company's still working in that area, and we reached out to them again today to just say, hey, this is sure taking a long time. Can you kind of step on it a little bit here? And so we're hoping to get some results there. But we may, depending on weather, be able to finish South 2nd. We're really kind of hoping for just being able to finish High Street this year before we get into the winter, or at least the seasonal rains of the fall. So just wanted you to have that update. Got any questions about that? Okay. This is a site distance issue on High Street, and the reason why I typically don't bring these kinds of things to you, we usually deal with them internally, don't have to deal with them, but there was some testimony at the Planning Commission. This is in the Kanema neighborhood, by the way. So if you're not familiar with this area, I completely understand. It's kind of off the beaten path, but it's really 3rd Avenue in Ganong. So if you come up through Kenema, it's really the one way to get up the hill from 3rd to 4th.
Yep.
And we've had, I would say, I'm going to go ahead and use this red pointer, so I know you can't see it on your screen. But this property here, and really this property here, there's been a bit of a neighborhood dispute. And as a result of that neighborhood dispute, there's questions about fence lines. And what is interesting about this particular location is there's a fence that I've kind of shown in blue dots right here. There's a fence that extends outside there. So their property line is shown in yellow. And this fence, which has been there for many years, is actually in the public right of way. As you may be familiar, the Kenema neighborhood has got pretty narrow streets and pretty wide rights of way. There's a variety of encroachments in the Kenema neighborhood, but this fence has been there a pretty long time. And I think really as a result of the neighborhood dispute, which was really about a new fence that kind of came along this property line, there's been a group of folks that are, I think, kind of pointing out this fence as a problem. And I've been resistant to making the change because it's been there for a very, very long time. And I don't really think it's about a safety issue, even though that's kind of how they've been queuing it up. So what I wanted to share with you in case, for one, I think this could be a Transportation Advisory Committee issue, but it went to the Planning Commission and was public testimony that was made at the Planning Commission. So I'm going to be writing a memo to the Planning Commission about this issue and sharing my thoughts, which is, one, the fence is, there's the fence. The fence is within the height requirements. So there's been 3 concerns. It's too high, it's in a sight distance triangle, and it encroaches into the right of way. So I get the fact that it encroaches into the right of way. We've got kind of ways of dealing with that, but we're confident that it's not too tall. It meets the city code with regard to height. And this question about sight distance is something that I just kind of wanted to share with you as a bit of a case study. Here's the other angle as you're looking at it from down below. This is a Google Earth picture that I just pulled off today, but as you come around that corner and you look up, that's that same fence. What's interesting about the fence is I think the fence was placed there because there's also a creek that runs right behind that fence. It crosses Ganong Street and runs right under that house right there. So it's done that for many, many years, but the creek is in a rock channel that's very fragile. And I think that's another good reason for having that fence there is it kind of, most people don't know there's a creek right there. And when people know there's a creek right there, we see things happen to those creeks. I mean, we've got lots of examples of folks.
Things end up in the creek that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. And at the other end of this property, there's a steel grate and, debris collecting on that can be problematic too. So Henry, you're probably familiar with this creek, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen this. I know the situation. And also, one of the things that's striking me back in my mind is there's a survey problem here too. Something about section lines that don't match, and so the property lines are more or less right if you use the correct starting point for your survey, but they don't match correctly at the edge of the section maps. And I think this is in the general area of that mismatch. And there's places out there where the right of way and the street aren't in the same place.
Well, the existing monuments up there, a lot of them have been reset and reestablished. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of work in the Kenema neighborhood over the years, and we actually had a storm project. And we did have a licensed surveyor establish those property corners, so they look like they line up at this location. But that fence is definitely outside the property line.
So with the fence, who is suffering because of the fence? Is there a loss to anybody?
Well, I think there's some personalities involved here.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no loss to anybody, then why proceed with anything?
Yeah, so that's been my main concern is I think this is more of a personality issue and less about the fence. I think the accusation that's being made is that fence right there is a sight distance problem, and it's in a sight distance triangle. And from our review of the situation, it's not in a sight distance triangle that is, a safety concern. It's really about making the city require this person to remove that fence. And I think the fence serves a purpose for the public.
Public safety.
If we ever needed to use that area, we've got all the rights that we need to use it. It's not like where a fence can sit on private property for a certain number of years and all of a sudden you have adverse, you then have right to that property. That can't happen in the public right of way. So to me, if we said, hey, we want to put a pathway in the right of way here or something, or we wanted to widen the road, we would have that right. So I think you're going where I'm going. I just kind of wanted to get some support.
So would it be, would this committee say Bob, we'd support leaving the fence alone?
Well, I think it's not so much the fence. The issue is this an obstruction to the sight line for the intersection?
Is it
Where this picture is being taken is approximately adjacent to where the stop bar would be. If you're coming to that T intersection, if you're a prudent driver, you stop, you check left, you check right. Are you clear? And then you move.
Yeah.
So
I've never, all the times I've driven along there, I've never been bothered by any kind of a sightline issue.
One of the things that Martin and I were talking about, just because I wanted a refresher, but this Ganong is kind of like the minor street, and Third is the more major street, even though they're all pretty minor streets. Yeah. The idea is the Kenema Park sits back here. So through traffic, there's no stop. There's no stop sign at any of these legs, but the definitely the person with the right of way is the person in Third Avenue. So, go ahead.
And you said yourself that there's no sightline issue.
Yeah.
So that point seems irrelevant to me. And if the city's going to step in over what you perceive to be a personality conflict, do you run the risk of setting any sort of a precedent if you don't do anything?
Well, I'm not suggesting we don't do anything. What I'm suggesting is that, two things. One, I'd like to reduce the issues to really an encroachment. We have an encroachment in the right-of-way. That we can deal with the city commission can improve an encroachment in the right-of-way. So what I was trying to get through was just the fact that the sight distance issue, in my opinion, and talked to others, including our transportation engineer, does not apply to this area where the fence is at. There's sight distance triangles there. Unfortunately, it's this house that sits right here. That's in the sight distance triangle right there, but it's also on their properties. So there's, they never had setbacks back then. But this fence right here is in no sight distance triangle.
No.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to get, is just kind of a little, and I don't even need a motion. I just want to be able to say that we had a conversation about it and we were in general agreement that
mission accomplished.
And I think I would also stress that the public advantage of the protection it provides to the creek and the outlet to the creek that's crossing under the roadway. Because if that fence was moved back, the city would be involved in getting down in there and cleaning that so that it would flow. And if it gets obstructed, then the house itself is in some danger.
Well, it would probably be obstructed by a car into it.
Or a grocery cart collecting brush or something.
John, would a motion by this committee be of any help, or are you just looking for ours?
I always love a motion. So I don't know what would the motion be? Motion to...
But if all you're looking for is you had a discussion.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
it's really not transportation committees.
Well, it involves the right of way.
Yeah. We have reviewed what he's presented and find it that the site issue, we support that there's no site issue.
I think a motion saying something along the lines, you concur with the Public Works Department assessment that this is not a sight line triangle obstruction.
So
As you
moved.
mentioned earlier, there's personality issues that are involved in this. Some of that is bleeding over in towards us, saying you're not taking action on this. And it's not that we're not taking action on it, is we don't see the validity in the complaint. And having some credence by bringing it to this committee, where you deal with transportation issues, allows us to say, we've looked at it, we don't see an obstruction. We've had Transportation Advisory Committee advised of it, and their decision was they concur with the department.
Well, I would take a motion by somebody.
Okay, let me try it. The motion that I'm thinking about is that the site triangle at 3rd and Ganong is not impacted by the fence extension that is into, admittedly, the right-of-way, and therefore we do not see a site triangle problem at the intersection of 3rd and Ganong.
10 words or less.
I think we leave the fence out of it and
Okay,
and
I'm
we
willing.
say we reviewed this situation and we find no site triangle issues with this
At that intersection.
That's fine. That's fine.
Lisa, could you reread that to us?
We should have, if I'd have been as smart as the planners, I'd have wrote you the motion and had you read it. That's what they do.
They concur that there is no site distance issue at the site triangle at 3rd Avenue and Ganong.
Do we need to add that we concur with Public Works assessment of the situation?
It doesn't hurt.
I think if we put that, we concur with the Public Works assessment that there is no site.
Because the next thing they'll do is challenge your credentials. So,
Do we need to specify which corner we're talking about?
We did.
I don't believe so.
Well, we said 3rd and Ganong, but there's
But if
four
we say
corners
the
to
Public
that,
Works
or 2 corners
assessment,
to
this
that.
Public Works assessment is of this corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the only reason I bring it up is because John already said the house at 216 is
There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
is there.
Okay, so call it the southeast corner.
Or 302, at 302.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Kelly Anderson seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
Thank you, that helps.
Well, that's
Where we
what
going
we're here
next?
for, John.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Central Point speed study, we're still working on this. This is a lot of information. I just needed a slide. I didn't have a graphic. So if you remember, we talked about Central Point Road a few months ago. The fact that we had generally reasonable speeds on all the sections that were posted 35 with the exception of everything south of Partlow Road. So we've since submitted a request for speed study on Central Point Road for the section between the city limits and Partlow Road. And that's been received. Dana Webb put together an amazing package of information, which included the survey results that we took from the community about what they wanted to see out there as far as speeds. And so the hope is that we'll get the study completed by ODOT and they'll approve that 35-mile-an-hour zone. They're telling us those studies are 6 to 9 months out. They've got that kind of backlog, so we're just sitting and waiting for that, but it's there.
Summer 2019 then.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So any questions about that one?
Is there a chance of putting that information out to the public or posting it on the website or something and saying that, we have analyzed, the city's analyzed it and has submitted a request to ODOT and that the information back suggests that sometime in 2019 it'll be looked at?
Yeah, we can update the webpage for that. Yeah.
If, when the
It may already have happened, but I don't know that. I didn't check that.
when the study comes back, you have to accept the results that they said that they say for speed limits.
They asked for concurrence.
Yeah, I think we've got some leverage to go with their recommendation or something, 5 miles more or less. Yeah.
I asked
We
that
like
because,
to accept we like to concur with ODOT though on those.
I mean, if we put something out expecting a specific result, okay?
You don't say the result, you just say it's out.
Oh, okay. If there's a study out, okay, that's
Yeah.
good, yeah, okay.
Well, you've got your leeway there, but there's also somewhat of a liability issue if you don't follow ODOT's conclusions.
Right, I was just concerned for the public,
Yeah.
okay, their perception of, well, there's a study out that's going to do this, and then the study comes back and
It says not something else.
the results weren't what the public expected.
Yeah, if you remember, that's why we limited the study because we had existing posting of 35 and we were seeing 85th percentile speeds more closer to 40 or above. And so we just said, well, we want to maintain our 35 mile an hour speed zone, but for that one area where it was far exceeding that, we wanted to reduce that speed.
Can we go back a slide for a second? Sorry to do that. Back to that. So I'm trying to, I know what 85th percentile means, and I know what mean speed beats. I'm trying to figure out what it looks like when there's such a wide disparity between the two, because you look everywhere else on the page, and they're like 5 miles apart from each other. So what's going on when there's a 17-mile difference between the mean and 85th percentile?
Yeah, you mean the 57 miles an hour
Yeah.
at that location?
Yeah.
And
it's so different than the 40 miles an hour. You look everywhere else between 85th percentile and mean, and there's like 6 miles an hour difference, and that one's 17. So there's a whole lot of people going 70 or something to get the 85th up there. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around what that looks
So
like.
there's a lot of traffic
road
on Central Point that turns off on Skellinger.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't continue all the way down to, so there's some traffic exit, so you may have some traffic that's going much faster there, but doesn't get to continue on their part of the rest of the traffic.
And this northbound one is the one that's coming into town after you come up the hill and he's come screaming around the corner.
Well, but I would agree with Mike in that it looks like a bit of an anomaly there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was, these are 1 day speed studies, right? So I don't know if there was, something going on that particular day. But, if you look at some of the other traffic on either side of it, it is higher than most. We got 47 on the southbound lane, just, one segment away. So, but then again, if you look at the 2014 study and the 2011 study, they seemed pretty consistent at 40, 41 miles an hour. I think I would not focus on the 57 and more focus on the fact that we've got speeds higher than we want them to be there. And we'd like to reduce that to really this whole thing was about making it consistent. The minute you got to the city limits, maintain 35 miles an hour along that entire run.
Okay, thank you.
But the data is what the data is. I don't know why.
Okay, thanks.
Just an update on Malala Avenue, the third phase. So we've since signed and executed a agreement with Metro for the exchange of funds for that grant project. So that's just under 4 million, 3.8 something million. I've forgotten what it is, but and because of that, they've given us we've told them how we design and build that project over time. So it's somewhat, they'll reimburse the city as we spend the money. So that's good. They've added some things about specific measures that help after we're done, establish whether or not it was a good or bad project from their perspective. So that's been that's in the agreement as well. And then with that, we've already solicited for proposals from consultants, and we've selected the same consultant that's working on the Myers Road project right now, which is OBEC. They put together a really good team of sub-consultants. And so right now, we've selected them based on their qualifications, which is state law. And then we are charged with working with them on a scope of work and a fee schedule that matches that scope of work. This is probably going to be one of our bigger projects in the last couple of years, really, because it's got a lot of elements to it. Even though it's a pretty straightforward project, there's right-of-way acquisition, there's geotechnical concerns, public involvement, just access management, trying to take some of those places, especially near subway and, where they got these wide, expansive driveways, and trying to get those narrowed in. Franchise utilities are going to be a challenge along there. In particular, we got to move some PG poles. We'd like to see some of that go underground. So it's going to be a big scope.
I was going to ask where you came out on that, on the moving the utilities underground.
I think, we've got agreements with those franchise utilities that often require them to move when we need them to move, but we don't go as far as saying you must put your utilities underground unless it's a new subdivision. There we require it. But in cases where it's existing overhead, the city would probably have to build a lot of the infrastructure for them to go underground. And they'd probably welcome that, but it's a big expense. One of the big adds to this project that we weren't planning on when we applied for the grant was we've looked at Martin and Alita, our city engineer, have spent a lot of time looking at our water distribution system, and we've determined that we need a large diameter water line that runs most of the length of Molalla Avenue. So we need a 24-inch diameter water line that runs really out to Henrici, and this is one element of it that we want to make sure we get completed. So we're going to add that to the scope, which is a pretty big item.
Twofer, huh?
Well, it's not a twofer. It's probably it's a lot of money, I think, at the end of the day. So we're working through that, trying to figure out how to do that and incorporate it into the grant that's really dedicated to everything but the water line. So water line will probably be covered through water system development charges and rates that we've collected. So we're working on that.
What's the major or several major transportation improvements you expect to see if this project is done as you planned right now?
Well, I think it's cleanup of a lot of the varying lane widths. It's probably adding some medians to channelize some of the driveways a little better. If you go along that roadway, you often find that you're trying to turn and hitting opposing traffic in the center, trying to clean that up. Definitely the access management for getting these driveways that are wide to narrow and trying to combine those where we can. And then just really it's about bike and ped. Those Metro grants were really about improvements to bike, ped, and transit, right? So with that, we're gonna look at the two existing signals. We know we're gonna replace the Gaffney Lane signal and the Claremont signal. And we're also, today we talked about doing a study for Fur and determine if there's signal warrants for Fur Street as well. So it's not necessarily about
lane capacity
along Molalla Avenue, because going wider would be much more than what we've kind of been pursuing. But it should help from a safety and just the flow of traffic, kind of like what Molalla, the other phases of Molalla, I think, did a lot of that. We move a lot of traffic in 2 lanes or a lane in each direction, but you add in all these conflict points and it becomes more of a safety and really efficiency issue. So I think we'll both help on the safety of the drivers and definitely pedestrians and bicyclists. There's a lot of stretches that don't have sidewalk through there.
It's very multimodal. So it's looking at bicycling. I think the plan or the document we reviewed today is a 10-foot sidewalk on the western side. Accommodations and coordination with TriMet. And then one of the things that we really like is cleaning up these intersections and signals, and then working towards one of our larger long-term goals, connectivity of the signal systems for an intelligent traffic system, so we can kind of get those all tied in and talking to one another.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, but there's another project that we are in the we're looking very good. We haven't got the grant, but it's doing signal interconnect along, the existing signals at the Hilltop Shopping Mall. I think it goes all the way to Warner Milne and goes across over to Maple Lane. So that's another project that that's more like, changing out signal controllers, doing interconnections so that we got connectivity between signals. Maybe some safety. I think we included the kind of a reader board type of signage out on 213 that would inform the public of congestion ahead or to slow down, that kind of signage. So hopefully we'll get that grant too. But
won't that require some additional ductwork for the interconnect lines, or are you going to use radio?
Don't know yet. Don't know how best to do that. But, usually those duct runs are more problematic. If we can do it without wires, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. There's already copper connecting all of those. It's not fiber though. Yeah. So they are speaking to each other on a limited basis, but it doesn't give us the bandwidth that fiber would give us.
But if you're going to do the upgrade work, that means that you'd probably end up
for the new
putting that underground during this phase so that you could end up doing that later.
Yeah, one of the caveats, it's all kind of coming together with Malala, maybe this grant, and then the First Street property, we want to get fiber there too. So that's another project Martin's working on with another guy in the office we're trying to figure out how to utilize existing conduits and get a route to the First Street property. So
didn't the county go over there?
County gets close, but we're working out a different deal with Beaver Creek Telephone.
Will you have to, as part of this project, also do a bunch of ADA improvements?
The Malala project?
Yeah.
Yeah. All of it will have to, all the intersections. We're going to basically reconstruct the street. So as you guys know from past projects, we do that. We got to deal with all the ADA improvements.
When do you anticipate getting started on this?
The design's going to start probably, I think we talked about the first meeting in, we're going to award on the 17th of October for the consultant services. They're going to get going right away with survey and probably right away acquisition, or at least starting that.
Starts last week of October.
Yeah, so that's going to move pretty quick. I think construction, I'm trying to remember, I think this was assumed to be a one-season construction project, but with the water line, we're probably going to see water line work happen first. That'll probably be fall of next year. I should know the schedule better than that, but I don't. Okay. Just alternate mobility. That was another item. So you guys have kind of heard a lot about alternate mobility at the intersection of Beaver Creek and 213. This was just a reminder that that project also includes this acceleration lane, free-flowing acceleration lane from Beaver Creek Road onto 213. So that's kind of that, along with the alternate mobility study. And really my update is that ODOT has received and reviewed and kind of they're moving forward with presentation of our study and their own findings to take that to the Oregon Transportation Commission, the OTC. And that's supposed to happen in October and November. We haven't seen it yet on their agenda, but we're confident that they're moving in that direction. So I think it's moving forward we're done, by the way. The commission adopted it. It was adopted at the planning commission level, city commission level, and kind of just packaged and handed to ODOT, and the ODOT staff will move it. The ODOT planning staff are the folks who will take it to the OTC. So if there's meaningful changes there, we'll help you understand that. What was this one about? Somehow I lost the rest of my notes. So.
This is the vehicle registration?
Mm-hmm. Vehicle registration, and you already talked about the shuttle grant.
Yeah, so this slide is just another graphic just to talk about Oregon Transportation Commission. So that's where it's going. So that was for the last topic. Yeah, so road funding under vehicle registration fees. The county is looking pretty hard at adopting a vehicle registration fee. These are slides from the county that I wanted to share with you. So really the point of this slide is just sharing that Washington County is really well funded. They've got a local gas tax, they've got a road district, they've got property taxes, and they've got vehicle registration fees. If you live in Washington County, it's pretty obvious that they got their transportation network is well funded. Senator Mayor, I'm guessing you have get some project work out of Washington County pretty regularly.
Yeah, they're like constantly pushing that boundary, and they're really very effective in getting money, and also from the county citizens within the county, and pushing and leveraging the funds, and they're pretty good about it.
That's how they can get large projects like Highway 26. They help with ODOT to get some of that funding as well. Multnomah County, not quite where Washington County is, but they're better than Clackamas County, who has really nothing other than gas tax, right? So they don't have, inside Clackamas County, we don't have a local gas tax ad. We don't have a vehicle registration or any of the other things. So the county county administration, based on, not the administration, the county board at the last C4 meeting I went to was ready to go towards vehicle registration fee. The question was how much, and they were pretty focused on $30 per vehicle per year. So that doesn't necessarily have to go to a vote of the people, and there's feeling amongst them that the community is supportive enough for them to go ahead and implement a vehicle registration fee. So they also kind of been looking at some scenarios, and I just want to focus on Oregon City. So that would be the dollar amount that would be an annual dollar amount. So there's just 3 scenarios in this graph. Maybe that's what I should talk about first. There's this side is just about population and how the population split is across the county. This is just if it followed a $30 per year vehicle registration rate, how much money would be collected. And all 3 of these scenarios collect the same amount of money. So they're all looking at a $30 per vehicle per year rate. And then this is just the allocation across what that would look like for each of the cities and the county. So the county gets, under Oregon law, the distribution is 60% goes to the county and 40% goes to the city or the cities. So this is our allocation right there, nearly $700,000 a year. This was a little change to that, where they would take 10% of the county share and put it in what they're calling a countywide strategic investment fund. And they were really kind of focusing that countywide strategic investment fund, at least initially, on they'd like to transfer a lot of the county roads that are in city limits to the cities. So in order to do that, we've always required them through our agreement with the county on transfer that they improve those streets. Well, they've never really done that. So, or they have done that, but not as often as we like them to. So this design was to take 10% of the county share and plug it into a fund that they could call, that they're calling strategic investment funds. And this here showed a much different split, which showed, trying to remember, 20% of the city's 40% would go to this investment fund, and 20% of the county's 60% would go to the investment fund. So nobody liked this idea at the C4, and I really think everybody liked this idea, which was keep the cities whole, use some of that money that goes to the county to help fund these road transfers. And in Oregon City, the road transfers, this isn't changing. Is there something going on with the machine here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything went down for a second. It's coming back up. There you go.
There's the slide. So these are county roads that are in our jurisdiction in red. And so this kind of gives you an idea of, imagine other agencies that have a list similar to this, maybe even worse. If you're in Happy Valley, there's a lot of county roads over in Happy Valley. But trying to make gains on that, kind of at $1 million a year, it's still going to take some time, but it's good to see that they're looking at some of those roadways in the cities to find a way to transfer. And they're really pretty interested in this road right here, which is South End Road, which we're less interested in. So we're probably going to start with things like Caulfield or Beaver Creek Road or something like that. But
I would say don't take South End Road at all.
So can the city itself raise additional registration fees or vehicle registration fees or other, gas, tax, or other means of raising additional funds? Because, I don't know how big is the transportation needs within Oregon City, but this is not a lot of money and there's a lot of need.
Yeah, there is a lot of need. There's an influx between the gas taxes that were approved through the House Bill 2017 that we'll be getting. And I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but it's similar dollar amount per year that we'll be getting at they have to ramp that dollar amount up. So that's similar, as well as the vehicle registration fee. And to be honest with you, both the industry, whether it be the contractor industry or the consultant industry or even the agency staff level, I think it's a challenge for us to kind of figure out how to spend that money wisely and appropriately. So I hear the need piece because we know there's big projects out there, but this is a huge shot in the arm. It would be a huge shot in the arm, particularly for Oregon City. And it would help. The nice thing about these funds are we could use them on those projects that we can't fully fund with SDCs because they provide more than just capacity, right?
But I'm going back all the way to that slide where you're getting grant for the work along Holcomb. And you're going after that work because there's a need there, but there's no funding. But it seems like those projects you should be able to go to the public and say, hey, here's a need. That's what Washington County effectively does. They go to the citizens and say, we need to raise the funds and we'll put them towards these projects. So year after year, they deliver these projects and public supports, and those funding mechanisms renew year after year or every couple of years. And there's no really, Oregon City or Clackamas County doesn't really do none of that stuff. And roads keep that going down the hill.
By the way, being on fixed income, can I just write a $90 check a year to the city so I know that they get my money?
Well, these are good questions. I think there's validity to the fact that there's a big need in Clackamas County, different than what we have in Washington County, right? Washington County seems to have found a way to fund its infrastructure needs better than has happened in Clackamas County. So your question was kind of twofold. Could you approve a different funding source, another gas tax, for instance, or additional fees, utility fees? Those things can happen. I'm not sure we as a city can adopt a vehicle registration fee. I don't think that's allowed.
But you're talking about a specific fund for specific projects.
Yeah.
Or like a road district.
Yeah, a road district. That kind of thing could happen.
That would effectively.
But the district, those in the district would have to approve that, wouldn't they?
Correct.
Unless it was a fee. If it's a tax, they get to say if it's a fee, they don't.
There is something that I don't know that I can answer for you. On Washington County, they were able to establish that road district. I don't know if that's, I mean, we can do like a local improvement district, which says, here's an area, they're getting something new, but I don't know if we can still form road districts.
Well, I don't even know if you have to form a road district specifically unless you want to make it permanent, but a county or a city can go out and bond for 20 years or 10 years and list 7 roads they're going to improve and just do that. You need to have citizens vote on that, but I mean, so you could say, we're going to do $3 million worth of work, it's going to be a 20-year bond issue, and we're going to repair these 7 streets and put it out to vote. And if you pick your streets right, it's First Street like it is right now. Everybody understands it's a mess, you know?
Oregon City did that about 25 years ago.
There's definitely those other ways of getting more funding. The question is there the political environment to do that?
In your transit utility fee that goes out monthly was kind of in lieu of some of these other options for funding, right? The transportation fee that you pay each month.
It's more dedicated to pavement maintenance.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
but you
a lot
kind
of
of
people,
elected that option rather than some of these others when you did that.
That's true. We looked at several ways to fund maintenance back.
But you didn't shut down any of the other ways when you did that.
Say that again?
You didn't shut down, that is to say, that we won't do the other ways. You just chose that one way, so the other ways are still open.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's true. So there's other options. I think that becomes more of the political fight to get the public to approve those.
I still think a small city gas taxes would be helpful.
Except that you're seeing gas tax funds continually decrease as the efficiency of vehicles and the onset of electric vehicles comes on.
Right, but a small amount above what you're getting now is still more.
Agreed, but it's like a sin tax. Mm-hmm. So you tax cigarettes and fewer and fewer people smoke cigarettes and your revenue keeps going down, but your need keeps going up.
Yeah, but when you're looking for money, you don't throw all your eggs in one pot. That's what Washington County shows right here. You access everything you can so that you can get a wide variety. You have stocks, you have bonds.
I get that.
And that's what I'm saying here is just, it won't be much, but it's still better than nothing.
Okay. So we're not going to solve that debate tonight, but I wanted to let you know that the county was pursuing it sounds like they're going to vote soon on a vehicle registration fee. And by what they've talked about so far, they've been talking about $30 per vehicle per year.
Maybe there'd be a veterans discount.
So those veterans who don't have to permanent tag, then they would be exempt from that, I guess. Huh? You don't have to go back and do it.
I already talked about this topic, but this is about that last mile shuttle service, and I feel pretty good about the fact that I think that's going to be a good program. There'll be some study effort. We haven't figured out if there's a public involvement kind of element to that, but if there were, we'd probably rely on the Transportation Advisory Committee to kind of help us through that piece. So. And my slides were out of order on that, but that's it for me.
All right, thank you, John.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Caulfield Neighborhood Association meeting is Tuesday night, and I'm likely to get asked about the Myers Road extension. Any progress on the power line height hiccup?
Yeah, we've received information from BPA on costs to raise the towers. So they'll actually be using, let's see, how are they doing this? They're moving and raising the towers, okay? And the question is do we do 1, 2, or 3 towers? And for our project, we need 1 tower raised. But there's also land underneath those power lines that we've got kind of targeted for employment lands. And, so the idea of raising more than 1 tower is something we're considering as both a way to sweeten the pot for right-of-way acquisition, because the two property owners that it helps, we also are trying to negotiate right-of-way on. But there's an end to the means. It's not completely out of the range of what we were anticipating paying. They're about $250,000 a piece to raise. So one of them is manageable. Three of them is something we're pursuing grant funding to help cover, but that's what we're hoping to do. So we're close on BPA. We're also close on right-of-way negotiation.
Okay.
There's one holdup, and that's ODOT right now, but we're working on that one too.
Okay.
So probably start construction on that one 2019.
Okay, thanks.
The next item is communications. I have several items. So I'll start. Bob Mahoney has resigned from the committee, and so we'll be working on putting together applications for that spot. And Michael may or may not be with us, depending on the
To be determined.
elections. Jonathan David is at the end of his term. So Lisa or Kim, would you please notify Jonathan that he has to reapply?
Sure. Yep.
Me too.
Yeah, you are too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have 3 vacancies, and if Mike goes, it'll be a 4th.
Did you already get an email about it?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but I'm expecting it next month.
Yeah, because I did, day before yesterday, got like an automated email,
Yeah.
not from us,
Right.
from the
It's,
Granicus system.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you click on that, all your information is already pre-filled. It makes it
Yep.
real easy to reapply.
Well, I look forward to that.
Look in your spam, because I know we've had issues emailing back and forth before.
My spam is automatic delete.
Oh, okay. Then I'll ask Katie to have it resend.
Give it a different name from it, and that'll help.
Okay.
I know your stuff comes through.
Okay. Good. Okay.
My next item is we changed our bylaws some time ago. But we haven't presented them to the city commission.
We did on June 6th.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
Oh, how did I miss that?
No.
You were having fun.
I guess so.
We haven't
It
met
was
for
a
a while.
consent agenda
Yeah.
item. It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, okay. That's why I missed it. However, when I looked on the city website, under the Transportation Advisory Committee, the last amended bylaws don't show the amended bylaws of 8/17/16.
I'll update the website for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then according to our bylaws, we need to review the transportation system plan every 5 years, and this is the 5th year. So we need to get that on our agenda.
It sounds like a work project, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, there's several things that I would be interested in. Number one, which items in the TSP have been completed? Which items have been moved to a different priority? Which items have been added to the TSP? I don't think that we need to go through every single item in the TSP for review unless you guys want to.
Goodness, no.
So I'm just thinking, Bob, about that a little bit. So we updated SDCs, and at that time we updated the project list. We talked about that here. Nobody in this group kind of opened the book and looked at all that, but we provided all the details about projects on that list. We added some projects. We added the Beaver Creek 213 project. I don't remember them all, but there's been several ads that we did that would have been late 2017, early 2018. So from a review of the TSP, that's very fresh to me. How much of that was actually work that the Transportation Advisory Committee did? That's probably less, but there was several. I think we'll have to look, Lisa. I think we had motions for approval on a lot of the things that we did to the TSP. So from my perspective, the TSP, beyond going through the full rewrite that we did back 5 years ago, it's more about the project capital list and looking at that.
Yeah.
We took some projects off that we had completed and we added some projects.
So you've been keeping us up to date on most of those things. So we've kind of been doing an ongoing review.
Yeah.
So might we be able to say that we've been doing the review ongoing and then.
We can put together, maybe, Lisa, we could look at see what decisions we brought. I think we had motions for approval on some of those. Maybe just refresh your memory on what that was. I mean, if there's a desire to focus on a particular subject matter, we can do that. I don't know. The transportation system plan is pretty broad.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to go through that whole process again because I was on that committee and that's a huge project, but I just wanted to be sure that we were following our bylaws. And
I think the intent of that is to keep it fresh and not just let it sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
Ours definitely doesn't just sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
When is it due to go back to the state for reapproval?
Well, they generally put you on a 10-year cycle, and they haven't been, they've been working through. We were one of the first to get our TSP redone, and we got a grant to do that through the state. They've been doing it with other agencies. They've kind of had a wave of doing that. I haven't heard from them about reconsidering, but it's kind of like we just got through the RTP, which that's a big. Well, that's not even done, but from kind of the local level, it's done. That's more of the regional transportation, or that is the regional transportation plan. That's been a huge lift. So nobody's talking about redoing TSPs right now.
So we're not really behind the 8 ball yet.
We're nowhere near behind the 8 ball.
Okay.
We've got a long list of projects that, again, I keep thinking that's the end result, other than maybe your policy issues on do you support alternate modes of transportation? If so, here's the project list that goes along with it. Well, we've got all those projects. A lot of them, we're going to be delivering projects still.
And your TSP is in sync with the urban growth boundary, and those certain areas have their own master plans and transportation plans. So
even Metro on the regional level, their models are the same models we used, so things haven't really changed.
okay, does anybody have anything on communication they want to bring forward? John?
So at our Park Place Neighborhood Association meeting last night, they were talking about the construction project at Hiram and Cleveland. And looks like there's a subdivision going in on the south side of Cleveland. And then there's this gravel that's been laid on apparently an easement.
The old Hiram Road alignment?
Most of those aren't road related, but apparently is water main issue up there or something like that. Maybe you can give us an update on that.
Yeah, why don't you speak to that? Martin had his pulse on that a little more than I have.
So the work, so there's 2 separate projects going on. One is private development. That's what's going on at the corner of Cleveland and Hunter. That's Icon Development there.
They'll be putting urban streets in where they should be adjacent to their property.
So they'll be making all of the transportation concurrency improvements that they're required to as part of their development.
Which is basically frontage improvement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then there's a separate project, the gravel that project is a South Fork Water Board project. So the city is cooperating with South Fork or partners with them, but it's their project that we're helping them with the administration of it and permitting. And they have a water main that is located running through the Hiram Road unimproved right-of-way which has a leak that they are
Where
trying
the new gravel is?
where the new gravel is.
Okay.
So they're trying to address that leak. They've got it stabilized, under control, monitoring it. Within their master plan, they had identified a project that was supposed to be completed within their master plan term, which I think is like a 7-year period, I'm not sure, where they were supposed to put a new primary feed that would be coming off of the main that's running down Hunter. And there's an existing T at Hunter and Cleveland. And then they would install 860 feet of new, what is it? I forget what it says, 42-inch ductile iron main from that T down the Cleveland Road alignment, and then tying in to the existing older main that's going down the Hiram the Hiram Road alignment. So what they've decided to do is fast track that new 860 feet of 42-inch, get that in place. Then what they can do is provide the primary feed to the city and Oregon City through that route, and then allow them to work on that leak that's further uphill unobstructed. So it gives us a bypass.
Redundant.
Yeah, redundancy for feed coming out of the plant. So
Is that something that through their regular user fees, they're going to be able to pay for? Or is there
yeah, they've already got the funds allocated.
Okay.
It was already within their reserves account.
Okay.
There were 4 primary projects that were in their high needs category. This was one of them. There was one just ahead of it, and they just decided to swap the 2 out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other communications? Does anybody want to add anything to future agendas? None. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.